I think it's going to be devastating for Joe Burrow that he doesn't get to play in a divisional game without a pass rusher that can get 20 sacks this season. Like
an A-plus pass
he's going to die. Yeah, exactly. So I think this
literally
is great.
33% of his season's going to be against elite pass rusher.
Yeah.
This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not.
Welcome back to the Warner Brothers podcast. I'm Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan, joined by our brother Timmy G. Welcome back. Good to see you, Tim.
Been a while.
It
feels like it's been forever. Feels like it's been forever, and it's been like 1 month exactly, probably, right? Since the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
like pretty close to it.
Yeah, just about, because it would have been first week of February, so yeah.
February 8th.
Super Bowl was on the,
7th,
I was about to say 8th.
About a month. Listen, we got NFL free agency popping up this coming week. We've already had some we pretty much know what's going to go on now with like who's going to be released, blah, blah, blah. We've already had some trades. We've had a lot of moving parts. And honestly, to me, it seems like it's already going to be an explosive free agency period. And then, of course, we get the draft next. Fellas, before we really get to the shits, how do we feel? What's your feeling? We're going to start with you, Tim. What's your feeling on the temperature so far of the new league year?
I'm actually feeling pretty good. Coming into this year's free agency, I was kind of thinking like, yeah, there's a few like good names, but like not a ton of like superstar talent, just a bunch of like impactful players. But then we've had like some good trades that have been made that kind of started this whole free agency off. So like I think this has so far been a good one, and we haven't even seen really any of the big signings or big hints at where players are signing anyways. So I think this is starting out pretty good compared to what we could have had.
I agree.
Keen, how you feeling?
I agree. I think it's been good. The first thought that I had during this whole free agency period thus far has been what the typical contenders are. Like the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bills have been the three like grade A teams in the AFC for the last half decade, roughly. Like those have been the barometer for the AFC. Obviously, the Chiefs number one, but those are the teams that have been competing with them. All teams are telling me is like they feel either that they're not that close and they needed a move to make them closer, or they knew they needed something to upgrade. And obviously, the Chiefs didn't make the playoffs. Ravens didn't make the playoffs. The Bills lost in the second round of the playoffs. So, of course, you want to get better. But you don't always see teams like that have been consistently good instantly be like, before anything happens, yeah, we need to make moves. And so it's really shocked me that the teams that have made moves have been those three teams. And then obviously the Rams are like adding to them. And then the Raiders is trying to reset. Bears obviously as well. And that Bears, another team that's made a few moves that's trying to say like, oh, we were close. Now let's go. So I thought that's really been interesting as the teams that are making the moves, not just the moves themselves.
It has been interesting, mainly because I was expecting movement closer to this coming week and maybe the weeks beyond before the draft instead of this week. Like people really got jumping into it.
Yes.
Like you said, the Rams, the Ravens, and the Bills, notably. I want to talk about specifically Maxx Crosby. What was everybody's reaction to that? I almost hit the group chat because the trade happened yesterday, correct? It wasn't the day before. It was Friday.
Yes, it was yesterday.
I nearly hit the group chat because there was rumors of a possible Jalen Carter for Maxx Crosby deal, and I thought that was weird. And usually when you see rumors like that, like 9 times out of 10, they don't actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really still expect Max. I was like, okay, Maxx Crosby might get moved like this weekend. And then 2 hours later after that, we see 2 firsts for Maxx Crosby to go to the Ravens. 29 years old, coming off, I guess, a legit torn meniscus injury, right? That he ended with, even though he posted videos of him playing basketball going into week 18. But overall should be healthy week 1, should be healthy in preseason. What do we make of this Maxx Crosby move?
I think this was a pretty crazy move. I expected Crosby to be moved. It was pretty much like a done deal, it seemed, at the end of the season that he had played his last game as a Raider. I was surprised that the Ravens were even in on this. I didn't think that they'd be the team to do it. I thought there'd be some other teams. I thought the Bears were possibly going to get him. They were making moves left and right at the trade deadline there, and it just looked like they were freeing up space, getting picks to do it. I think it's going to be devastating for Joe Burrow that he doesn't get to play in a divisional game without a pass rusher that can get 20 sacks this season. Like
an A+ pass
he's going to die. Yeah, exactly. So I think this is
literally
great.
33% of his season's going to be against
A
elite
stud.
pass rusher.
Yeah. Every
So
game.
like the third of his season's against elite pass rushers in already games where he has had to have struggles. So yeah, it's gonna be lit for
Exactly.
him.
I think it's a good look when they bring in a new defensive young guy and then they go out and they get a stud like that. I think that's going to be, good pairing. So I think this was a great trade, giving up 2 firsts. This year's first is going to be like a mid first, but then
14th.
next year is probably going to be back into like the 20s range if we expect them to be a good team again. So it's not like they're giving up the biggest trade package here. So yeah, I like this kind of for both sides. I feel the same way on this trade that I did against like the Sauce Gardner trade, where it was like they got 2 firsts. It was a player that, yes, he's an impactful player, but by the time this team is going to be competing again, he's probably going to be at the end of his contract needing a re-sign anyways. So you might as well get your value while you can. Yes. So I like it for the Raiders. Getting a first this year, like you said, 14th, that could be your wide receiver 1. You've already got your QB signed here. You have your running back. Maybe this is line depth. Like there's a ton of ways they could go with this pick, and it's pretty pivotal here. They could make a big run on this year's draft.
Yes. I agree. I like it for both sides. Ravens, you can tell are in win now. Raiders, you can tell are in rebuild, and that's where both teams should be. I think that was also like when the Trent McDuffie trade, Kyle and I talked about it a little bit. We'll talk about it more here. It was kind of telling there where you feel like, oh, this team is in this mode, this team is in that mode. So I like it. The Ravens were tied for 30th last year in sacks. They only had 30. The year before they did very well in that sack department. Last year they were not. They couldn't get to the quarterback. So what do? Go get one of the better rushers in the league. So gonna help their pass rush, gonna help themselves defensively. Hopefully they don't. They've been kind of the Bengals defensively as of the last few seasons where it's been, early in the season, can't seem to get it going. Mid to late season, we pick it up and we become the Ravens defense and that identity that we've come to know from them every year. So hopefully they don't have to start off slow defensively this year, and then Lamar can stay healthy and that team will be as dangerous as any in the AFC as they should be. So like it there. And then for the Raiders, the more draft picks you can get, the better. Like whatever it is, just the more draft picks, the better. Get as much talent as you can in the first round, second round, third rounds as possible. And hopefully Mendoza pans out. That happens for you, then you'll be on your way.
Yeah, I mean, you said the Raiders are in rebuild. I think the Raiders are in hell. Like, I don't even know what the Raiders are gonna be unless Mendoza's like really that dude. Yeah, I mean, Clint Kubiak could be a great signing at head coach, but man, it just seems like there's a lot of mess going on over there. As far as the Ravens go, like you point out, they were last in sacks, which is, a fact, but they were so banged up and their defense played so well in the seasons prior to that, that you take a Maxx Crosby with this defense at full strength on top of whoever they might draft with a defensive coach now that they have at head coach. Yeah, I mean, this could be scary hours for the Baltimore Ravens as well as the rest of the league. I'm not sure what the odds are right now, but I would not be surprised if the Ravens are the number 1 AFC team. In fact, I expect that's probably who is the number 1 AFC favorite right now. If not the league favorite, I wouldn't be surprised to see them leap ahead of the Seahawks. And especially
last year going into the season, they were the favorites to win the Super Bowl. So putting them back there wouldn't be too much of a shock.
Yeah. And I mean, I think they nailed the head coach, the Ravens, but I mean, this is kind of why like me and Tim were kind of like, all right, it's a risk firing John Harbaugh because this team's obviously going to be right back in the mix. Again, I think they actually did nail the head coach, but for them to jump this far into it, I don't know if you guys saw the report earlier. The Cowboys offered a first and a second. That
Yep.
would be more in line with what I would think Crosby's value is, honestly. The fact that it's the Ravens, 2 firsts, yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, those could be important pieces for them, especially the fact that they got 14 this year. But if you can get a guy like Crosby in your locker room, that could very well just be the difference. You know what I mean? 3rd and long, 4th and long,
Yeah.
and the AFC divisional game or AFC championship game or the Super Bowl, and you got him coming at you, and you're the opposing quarterback. Yeah, that could be all the difference in the world. So I thought it was a great move on their part.
The Ravens are currently 3rd in for the Super Bowl. The Rams are actually 1st at plus 700. This is according to FanDuel. Plus 750 for the Seahawks. Rams are 3rd. Bills are 4th. And then for the AFC, the Ravens are plus 440. Bills are plus 500. Then it goes Chargers, Patriots, Chiefs, Broncos. The Chiefs being in front of the Broncos is crazy. And the Chiefs being fifth to me is a little... Like I would wait until their off season. Like I think the 5th is kind of crazy.
I got to hear more about Mahomes. Is he going to be starting week 1 next year?
Yeah,
if he doesn't start till week 6 or 8, then we got a problem. That's not a...
Yeah, so if they have a great off season, sign the right players, and Mahomes is back week 1 and everything looks like trending, then sure, with them having a weaker schedule, and obviously once they get to the playoffs, they're a dangerous team, sure. But what's happening with Travis Kelce? What's happening with Patrick Mahomes? What is Chris Jones? How long is he going to be? Yeah, I was going to say, we just haven't heard anything. So we don't know if Kelsey's going to be back, not going to be back. It's just all up in the air. So
I just think we would have heard by now if Kelsey was retiring.
Yeah,
so
you would think. You would think. You haven't got confirmation either way. So that's why just them at plus 800 at 5th just kind of shocks me, especially when the Broncos were a Bonix injury away from the Super Bowl last year, possibly. So I just think that the Broncos should be at least better favorites than the Chiefs, in my humble opinion. But that's
that doesn't shock me at all because it's like the Lakers in the NBA. They're just going to give them high odds so people bet them anyway. So the Chiefs will always, even if the Chiefs have a weaker team, like we saw this past year, they were up there in the standings after they were coming off a Super Bowl berth. But I think the 3 guys you just said, if we're talking about the Chiefs, Mahomes, Chris Jones, Kelce, I think all 3, obviously Mahomes will be there, but I think Jones and Kelce for sure will be back. All signs point to Kelce being back, but I'm very interested to see what this rebuild looks like with the picks they're getting. Will there be more trades where they're getting more picks back? Are they really going to try to, you would like to say this is going to be a gap year, especially in that division, how tough it is. But it's the NFL. You can't really have gap years when you have Mahomes as your QB. Right? You can kind of almost play for a playoff position and then see what you get when you get there. But I don't know. I cannot wait. I think I said this the last podcast, Ian. Like, I just can't wait to see how they handle it when Mahomes is coming back, because you don't want to rush it. But at the same time, if he's there week 1, you don't want to you want to take it easy, obviously, but you're still going for the Super Bowl at the end of the day. I mean, it's a long season.
Of course. And speaking of Mahomes, we can kind of just jump right into Trent McDuffie getting traded to the Rams. They get a first back, but the Rams still have a first from Atlanta this year, so the Rams don't lose a first, like all first-round picks in this year's draft. But I think for the Rams, I'll reiterate again, then I'll let Timmy go. Rams, I think, is a very smart trade. You're in a win-now situation. Matt Stafford's not going to be there much longer, year or 2 maybe. So get every piece you can to win next year, because next year is the goal, because you don't know what the years after are going to look like. Chiefs, you have more problems than just a piece or 2 to help them get by. Get as much as you can now. Get some young players. You've seemed to develop players well. You've got a lot out of McDuffie. You weren't going to pay him, so get rid of him when you can.
I agree completely. You're giving up the 29th overall pick here to go and get a pretty much stud corner. He's going to be a starting corner on all downs pretty much. So that's great for your defense. And that was kind of one thing that was getting exposed of the Rams late in the season was the pass defense. So let's bolster that down. They've kind of made it a point that they don't care about picks. They'd rather have players that they know are good. If you go and look, they've only made one first-round selection in the last like 8 years, and it was Jared Verse, who was also like a stud. So like they know what they're doing. It's working.
Yes.
And I agree. They're in win now mode. They've got maximum 2 more years of Stafford. So this is going to be a good trade for sure. And then Chiefs get a piece. Whoever they draft, they can take their tackle, maybe whatever they want. Kind of gives them versatility in the first round too, to where they don't have to take a certain position with their first pick if they can get it later on. Because a lot of people have them in the Jeremiah Love sweepstakes. I don't know if he's there necessarily. I don't know if the Chiefs are willing to take him that early. But with this pick at the 29th, now if they were saying, hey, we wanted to take a tackle at 9, we can take Love at 9 and then just wait and get the second best tackle at 29 potentially. So it does kind of free them up offense or pick wise in the first round. So
I think this trade leans more to them hoping Jeremiah Love is there at 9. Like, that's just my thoughts from it. It's like, we have multiple issues we want to address with high draft capital, and they said, let's just get more draft capital to address that need. And they do develop corners well. Jalen Watson, someone they drafted late, that's developed well. Trent McDuffie, obviously, they took with the Tyreek Hill first-round pick. He developed into something very good. So they draft and develop corners well. So we'll see.
Yeah, and like I said the other day, I mean, I mainly just said this has been the Rams' MO under Sean McVay, is like really going for it in an NBA type of way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm real interested to see what the rest of their offseason looks like. Do they add more vets? Do they get aggressive? Do they take more chances in the trade market? And then obviously they got 10, we said, in the draft because they got the Falcons pick.
The Rams draft, I think 10, roughly around there. 11, I think it's 11. But
so, I mean, yeah, they got all kinds of options. And then obviously, like we just said with the Chiefs, they're obviously retooling, restocking, and, we'll see what comes of them. But Rams interest me because they're one of the only teams I think we've seen like consistently be like, all right, yeah, we're just going to give up a first rounder. Obviously, them having the Falcons pick, it offered them more freedom, but it's interesting.
I mean, would you is Trent McDuffie, would you draft him in the first round if you knew you could get that talent out of him? The answer is yes. So like, it's like you drafted a first round pick. And so like a lot of these times, like if you're going to trade somebody who is worth, like obviously you try to trade for what they're worth clearly, but like if you mentally can think to ourselves, if this player if they was on the board, just say, would we draft him with this pick in the draft if he was there? And the answer is yes. Then you can trade a first for him because essentially your first round pick was that. So makes sense. If they wanted their first round pick to be at 29 and like, hey, can we get someone as good as Trent McDuffie at 29? Probably not. Let's go get that. So I've always thought that obviously draft capital matters way more in the NFL than it does the NBA, even though it's important in the NBA. But I'm fine trading a first if you feel as if that player you just traded, you're getting that exact value. Like the Ravens are like, would we keep Maxx Crosby on this roster and be like happy, like, yeah, we got it this year and we don't even need a first next year because he's that good? If the answer is yes, then that trade's not a bad trade for them. So, and you can justify obviously the trades that happened. And if there's not more on Trent McDuffie, the other powerhouse of the AFC over the last half decade, the Bills signed McGovern, and then they trade for DJ Moore, a move that I was not expecting, but I like it. I like it for both sides, honestly. But we'll talk Bills side and we'll talk Bears side. Kyle, what are your thoughts on that? And then Timmy, you can go.
It's interesting. I mean, it's what you need for Josh Allen as a target, but I don't know. You gave up a second round pick along with it, right? So that's really what you gave up for DJ Moore. If he's reliable for Josh Allen, if you get 17 games out of him, obviously, yeah, okay, that's your weapon. They have the second most expensive wide receiver room in the league. That's a little concerning. Obviously, it's talent, though, at the end of the day. But, I mean, I almost feel with Josh Allen how I used to feel about Tom Brady. Like, you just don't need much around him. As far as, like, we've seen Shakir be, like, such a reliable target for him. We've seen the tight ends be such reliable targets for him. We saw Brandon Cooks, funny enough, who was somewhat the difference in that Broncos game. Obviously, he was the controversial play, but we saw him come along late and be like a difference maker for the Bills. So I don't know if I would have given up a second truly for DJ Moore, or if I'd rather have gone into the draft and got a cheaper receiver, right? Because then you're gonna have to pay DJ Moore. So I don't know. Time will tell like how much this actually matters. At the end of the day, like he's got more ability than everyone in their locker room, unless maybe you can get another full season out of Cooks like that, even though he came along late. But if he truly becomes a difference maker, then yeah, by all means, then that second round pick, you did the right thing. You got a fifth back, then yeah, that's the right move. But the question is, are you going to get that from DJ Moore?
I want to quickly say right before you go, Timmy, that speaking of Brandon Cooks, this kind of reminded me, you're speaking Patriots, kind of reminded me when the Patriots traded for Brandon Cooks going into that 2017 season, where they said, hey, we'll trade a fourth in Brandon Cooks for like a first and a 6th round pick. And Brandon Cooks, obviously he got injured in the Super Bowl with a concussion, but throughout the year, he was a very big target for the Patriots. He had over 1,000 yards that season. So he kind of helped that Patriots offense become a little bit more explosive vertically, because obviously you had Edelman underneath, you have Amendola, obviously Gronk is there, but like I think he added a little facet to that team. And if DJ Moore can do the same thing because he can get over the top, I think that can be all you need, because you have Khalil Shakir underneath if Keon Coleman can get along as a possession guy. So, but Timmy, you go. What are your thoughts on this trade?
I do agree with Kyle. I like the trade for the Bills because DJ Moore is like unarguably the best wide receiver in this locker room now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when he was on the Bears, it was kind of like muddied water. I think he was the better wide receiver in that group, but they weren't using him like that. So to get him into Buffalo, now he gets to be used. This is good for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree that a second round pick is a little high for him. I think they had to pay him $15 million this year. I believe they just converted it to a signing bonus though, so that kind of saves them on the cap a little bit. But then they're going to have to pay him if they want to keep him around. So money wise, it's a little rich, and a second is a little bit heavy, but they needed help. And I don't know if they were going to find that in this year's draft. They definitely weren't going to find it in the second round of this year's draft. So I do like the trade. I think Moore can be great in Buffalo. I think he can be the number one target. And that's something that Moore was really good at, being like that deep threat, big play guy. And we saw the Bills season end on a deep ball that just didn't go their way. And I think Moore makes that catch. I really do. So I think it'll benefit them both teams.
Yeah.
Also, not to mention,
go on.
I was just going to say, not for nothing, home team Buffalo Bills now. They're no longer outdoors. So, I mean,
yes, sir.
This benefits them in that avenue.
Yeah, no, and that I think that's a factor too, because you don't have to only play for ground and pound physical he played in Carolina and he played in Chicago, so it's not like he hasn't dealt with weather, but like you don't have to only go for that. You can get some guys who can fly, and I like DJ Moore, and I think that when you give quarterbacks like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes in the league, Lamar Jackson, these great quarterbacks who don't necessarily need great talent to be great, when you give them talented players, that's when they can be great rather than just always being very good or having to do a little more with less. Like as we spoke with Brady, like when you gave him true weapons, that's when you're like, oh, man, could you okay. Obviously not that he couldn't do it without it. He's won MVPs without having that great weapon. Same with Mahomes the year after they traded Tyreek Hill, had 41 touchdowns, won the MVP that season. But we see obviously Josh Allen won an MVP without having a true, that's a special number one guy. But I think DJ Moore has the potential to be a 1,200, 1,300 yard guy, and they really didn't have that on the roster. Shakir's around 1,000, but I don't know if I can see him in that 1,300 range. Anyone can surprise you. But so for the Bills, we all like it. Maybe felt like it's a little much, which means for the Bears, you have Luther Burden, you have Roma Dunze, you have Loveland, you have Komet. So you have 4 reliable pass catchers. Komet, if you don't want to say two reliable, whatever, but you have 3 to 4 reliable pass catchers, and now you're getting more draft capital. I really like this for the Bears. I think it gives them, they're young. And I think that Caleb Williams will be able to grow with Luther Bird and grow with Roma Dunze. So the more he can grow with them, I think DJ Moore just didn't even need to be a feature in that offense the same way he was. And it was almost like his talent was too good for the role they wanted him to play. So it's like, trade him while we can so he doesn't have like a bad season and now a second round pick turns into a fourth, because it's like, how good is he? No, he's still good. So really like it for the Bears. I think they're thinking proactively, and that's what makes them scary, because it seems like for a while the Bears were kind of a stuck in the mud-ish kind of franchise, and I think they're moving proactively right now. I like it.
Yeah, Bears are young, but they're ready.
Yes.
They're ready. I cannot wait to see what their regular season looks like. Like, we're talking about, I just talked about how I can't wait to see how the Rams approach the rest of the offseason as far as outside the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, just going back to the Bills real quick, I can't wait to see how the Bills approach the draft, because they're going so offensive heavy, and obviously Joe Brady is their head coach now. So I can't wait to see how they actually fill out this defense, how they approach the draft, how they're going to make this team whole. Because I've said in the past, like, you don't really have, yeah, you can have issues with the cap in football, but it doesn't matter the way it does in the NBA. But they're one of the teams that people would consider like cap strapped. So I'm really going to be looking at Buffalo in the draft when it comes to this trade. And I agree with you, Keenan. Like, he can definitely, like you said, if you give an elite quarterback even close to elite weapon, it doesn't even have to be a true elite weapon, just a weapon in general. Yeah, that could be all the difference. But there's so many factors with the Bills, and we'll get to it when we talk about certain players with championships and what that number might be. But going forward, I'm a little more worried about the Bills than I am the Ravens. And maybe that's more coded in their franchise history, but I'm a little more worried about the Bills going forward than the Ravens. Just a little bit.
I would say the same. I'm about the same worried with both, to be quite honest with you. I'm about this. These teams feel incredibly identical to me, and they're completely different teams. It just seems like there's always something they can't get over the hump because of something. For Josh Allen, it's literally just been Patrick Mahomes and then a little bit of Joe Burrow, but really just, I can't beat Patrick Mahomes. And then with the Ravens, it just seems like some fourth quarter blown lead to some random thing going on. And maybe the coaching changes that. Not that John Harbaugh is a bad coach. We obviously know he's a very good coach, but maybe just something there, like the juju of John Harbaugh on this specific Ravens team changes. I don't know. So I feel like they just feel like almost the same team, but completely like different makeups. But they feel like the same team, like mentally to me.
Quick rebuttal before Tim goes. The difference with me with the Ravens and Bills, Ravens are a well-rounded team. The Bills feel very just offensive sided right now, especially because they just released, they just released their cornerback there.
Was it? It wasn't White, was it? Was it?
Might have been. It's not coming to me right now, but Ravens just seem much more well-rounded. Then you add Crosby to the mix, could get you gearing towards elite on the defensive end. And then, if they get another impact receiver, I mean, there's not much not to like about the Ravens team. Whereas the Bills, they just have some holes. And again, my worry about them is more coded in their history. They seem like a truly cursed franchise. Ravens, I'm not worried about. And they seem to have won this head coach thing. And I like the hiring for the Bills too. Actually like everything about the Bills. I'm just worried about, all right, dome team, you seem to be headed more towards offense. You're going to need defense at some point. If you don't make those correct draft picks in the draft on defense, then what do you look like? So that's why I'm a little less worried about the Ravens and the Bills. Go ahead, Tim.
I would agree that roster-wise, when I just quickly think about both teams, I would say that the Ravens are in a better spot. But then when you really start to think about it, it's like, if I had to say one of these teams was facing the age cliff, it would be the Ravens for sure. We got Derrick Henry, he's old. Mark Andrews, he's old. They got to figure out if they're signing Isaiah Likely or not. And then if you think about like injury-wise, has Josh Allen ever been injured? Not really. Has Lamar? Of course. We've seen it a few times. So that makes me a little bit more worried. We both have rookie head coaches, so we're kind of in the same boat there. One is offensive, one is defensive. And both teams are kind of tailored towards their coach style. So I think they're kind of even on that. So I don't know if I could say for sure, I think I probably would say that the Ravens are in a better spot, especially after trading for Crosby. But it wouldn't surprise me if they both finish very similar, 12-5, winning their division. Wouldn't shock me at all, both teams here. So.
100%.
Especially when you consider the schedules too. We didn't even factor in. I mean, we'll talk about that more in August, but
100%.
Ravens and Bills are going to have a little more lenient schedules, you would think.
Both of them being second place in their division, so they're not going to have the only first place schedule that they've had for feels like the past 5 years. So go on, Kyle.
I was going to ask you guys a couple questions about two players in particular, real quick. Okay. We don't have to spend too much time on it. Where would you guys like to see one Kenneth Walker go? And then I'll give you the next back. First, we'll start with Kenneth Walker, though.
Timmy, you go.
I really want to see Kenneth re-sign with Seattle. I think Charbonnet isn't going to be ready to start the year at all. He got injured quite late. So there's no reason that Kenneth can't go back there and just be a stud for like 4 months and just completely dominate. I've seen a lot of people linking him to New York, and I really don't want him going there. I want Scatabo to be the thing, and if he goes there, it'll be like a 50-50, so I don't love that. That's kind of the place. A lot of other people are saying like Kansas City. I think Kansas City's a little too cheap, and I don't think they're going to want to pay him the money that he wants, and I think they'll get somebody like Travis Etienne, who's a little bit lesser value. They can pay him $8 million a year, whereas Kenneth, I think, is going to want like 12 to 13 million a year. So I think just going back to Seattle makes a lot of sense. Why not try to run it back? If anything, just get him on a 1-year deal so you're not killing your cap, and then anything that makes it better for you at the end of next year, you can decide, does he get a 2-year deal or not? So he's kind of approaching that age cliff where he's not going to get a 6-year deal, 5-year deal, or anything like that. He's probably going to get a 2 or 3-year deal. And maybe it is a team like the Titans that are like, yeah, here's $36 million to come be here for 3 years or whatever, and we're going to guarantee 26 of it or something like that. But yeah.
So in looking at teams and thinking, I've got 3 teams. I think actually I'm with Timmy. I actually think that going back to Seattle is the best move for him because you get to be a lead back for a while, and then you have already worked in the Charbonnet kind of back and forth there. The Seahawks, if I'm the Seahawks, I don't overpay for him because you do have Charbonnet, and I think you can supplement a back in there for a little bit of time until Charbonnet can get back and right. But their run game was very important and pivotal in their moving forward to the Super Bowl. If he wants to be a number one and just like a bell cow, I actually think going to Houston would be interesting now that they released Joe Mixon. I know that that team's defense, they have my kind of mindset. Obviously, we'll see what CJ Stroud is. I know obviously he started off great and he hasn't been phenomenal over the last couple seasons. He had a lot of he's had some highs, I should say, and a decent amount of lows. But I think Houston could be an interesting team. And then if not, actually 2 NFC East teams, I think. I think on Dallas, him and Javonte would be a pretty good tandem. I know, unless depending on what they want to do with Jaden Blue, if they really want to bring him along. And if not there, Washington. I don't think Washington has the greatest of run games with Brian Robinson. I know Kwaski Merritt. Not Brian Robinson, Kwaski Merritt. I think that in Washington, he really could be the number one there. And that could add a lot to that backfield. And having a Jaden Daniels and Kenneth Walker backfield looks a little scary. So those would be the 2 other teams if you want to kind of have a complementary backfield like a lot of teams are going with. If you want to be the bell cow, I think Houston would be a good spot.
Houston's very interesting because, obviously they just acquired David Montgomery, so we can talk about that in a sec as well. I actually kind of split my mind. Washington, I didn't think of. That makes a lot of sense, especially if you're trying to be competitive if you're Washington. Obviously, like you guys said, him just going back to Seattle, I mean, he's a big part of why they won the Super Bowl. When you factor in how he played in the NFC Championship game without Charbonnet, be someone who is just effective just to throw in there. He could obviously make a full-time back, so why not just keep him? That being said, you probably could replace him via the draft. Tim, I kind of disagree. I haven't thought about options for him because he's such like a he's not really a premier back, but he's obviously an explosive back, and he's obviously, someone who can make a difference. I kind of love him on the Giants. I wasn't even thinking about that. With him and Scadaboo, I think that could be a great combo, honestly, especially with a team that could walk into the playoffs this year, depending on, how you feel about Jackson Dart. You got Harbaugh there now. You got talent there already. I kind of like that pairing. I'm kind of with you guys, though. I would like to see him stay in Seattle. I think that makes the most sense. But if they want to cheap out, I kind of love the thought of New York and like the Texans. If you ended up losing Mixon and you got David Montgomery there along with Kenneth Walker, that's kind of expensive, to be honest, for some vet backs. What about Woody Marks? Is he still on the roster, or is he going to be a free agent?
He was a rookie this year, so he's got
yeah. So then you won't really need Kenneth Walker if that's the case. If you got Montgomery and
I'm not going to lie to you. I actually kind of forgot that they had gotten David Montgomery.
When you said that, I still didn't even remember that they had David Montgomery.
I completely had forgotten about that. So like with Montgomery and Marks, maybe not the best spot, but another spot that I was thinking of just barely. I know they have Swift and Monungai, but I think in Chicago, I could get rid of Swift. And
I've heard that he might be a cap casualty because of his contract. It's quite a bit this year.
So I could get rid of Swift, and you have Monungai to be kind of that powerish kind of guy, and you have Kenneth Walker to really set the pace for him and really go that 1-2 punch. So
another place that wouldn't shock me is Jacksonville. I think. Yeah. There's a good chance they let ETN walk. And I would view Kenneth as a slight upgrade to him. And if it wasn't crazy money, then it would make sense.
I don't think Tootin's a 3-down back, so
not at all. And if you let ETN walk, I'm not confident in that backfield without signing somebody. So I think that could be a good spot.
And
let's discuss ETN as well.
I was about to say, I think that's probably Kyle's other back. I would say for ETN, I think the Chiefs are interesting. Obviously, for the Chiefs, it's tough because like you would kind of like to see what the draft plays out before you sign somebody. Because it's like, oh, we signed ETN, but Jeremiah Love's there at the 9. Now we don't really need ETN as much because Love can be a 3-down back, truly. But I think the Chiefs would be interesting there. And if not, I think even a team kind of like the Bengals could be an interesting spot because I think they need a little bit of a 1-2 punch where you have obviously Chase Brown. He can run between the tackles. He's not like a bad running back by any means, but he's more of a receiving guy, or you can treat him as such. And then actually ETN can run between the tackles and be a true running back, even though he can receive the ball a bit too. I think just with him more so than Kenneth, I think Kenneth could really be like your true number one. I think ETN has the ability to be, but I think having him in a real dual set would probably benefit him the most. He's had some injury issues throughout his time.
Sorry. I think the Chiefs just make a whole lot of sense here. They don't have to spend a top pick to go get a running back. That's something that a lot of teams really don't want to do. And when you're a franchise like the Chiefs, I think they're more likely not to do it. They're going to kind of err on the side of caution there and say, no, we're not going to spend that big of draft capital to go get Love. We're going to just sign this $8 million back to a 2-year deal and let him be, helpful for us. Mm-hmm. If the Seahawks don't sign Kenneth, I'd like him there too. I think that's an interesting one because with Kenneth and Charbonnet, it's pretty split. You can tell like Kenneth is their premier running back, whereas Charbonnet is the premier receiving back. ETN can kind of do both. So when you put both of those guys in there, ETN and Charbonnet, you don't get that. They're probably going to run it here because Kenneth's in. You have no idea. They can both do it. So I think that kind of makes them a little bit more versatile on offense. And without Kubiak there, that might be what they're looking to do, is kind of scheme their way into things. So,
Kyle, before you go, real quick, just random thing for either Kenneth Walker or ETN. I thought Arizona. James Conner, not like great. Trey Benson, Bam Knight, like their backfield's not the greatest. So you can get a big guy. You can get a good guy in there. I think it can help that.
Yeah, I mean, like Tim said in the group chat a couple weeks ago, like Arizona loves being either competent or poverty and no in between. Like, so it looks like they're teetering more towards the poverty side, but we'll see. ETN's one of the more intriguing free agents to me. He is so explosive. A couple years ago, he was more boom or bust. He was either fumble or touchdown. It seemed. It seemed like he's cleaned up the fumbles a little bit. And obviously, Keen, like you said, his health issues over the years. But this year, I mean, he stayed pretty healthy for the most part. I don't get his games played in front of me, but
He's
seemed
actually
like
been
he-
even healthier than I thought. I had looked at his games here too. He'd missed a couple the year before. I don't know. It just mentally for me, it's always felt like ETN's missed a little bit of time here and there, but I guess he's played a lot of games. So
Well,
he's
you know
been
what?
healthier
You know
than
what I
I
think
even
it
thought.
was last year they had him in the doghouse quite a bit. Like he was really splitting time, and he split time with Tootin this year, but like he was really the lead back, especially down the stretch when they were making their run. Yeah, I love him for KC. I love him for any team that's like close. Any team that's close, I love them signing a back like Kenneth Walker or Travis Etienne. It's funny when teams like Arizona or whoever that's like got cap room and they're young and they're not close, they sign these guys and it's like pointless. And you're like, all right, you feel like you're wasting time. But the way the NFL works, you always have this year where a bad team finds their way, and then it's like, oh wow, that running back, like DeAndre Swift this year, that running back I didn't really think was gonna be that much of an impact. He's a whole impact guy. You know what I mean? So that always
Yeah.
seems to happen. I hope Walker and ETN, if they don't go back to the Jags and the Seahawks respectively, I hope they end up somewhere like y'all said, KC, maybe even New Orleans if they got the room for it. I mean, they're kind of on the rise too. Like any team that's either on the rise or is close to being, a Super Bowl team or a contender. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can't wait to see where those two specifically go.
Yes, I agree. I very much agree.
Y'all want to talk David Montgomery because we forgot about him a little bit. What did you guys think of this deal? That was a shocker when it happened at the beginning of this week.
I had forgotten about it, but now that I remember it, the only thing I actually thought of had nothing to do with the Texans and just had to do with Jameer Gibbs 1-1 fantasy this year. That's literally my only thought when this happened. I was like, Jameer Gibbs owners for next year, instead of being like, man, he's got top 1-1 potential, you have to take him maybe at 4 or 5 because Montgomery's there. It's like, nope. 1-1, guys. That's for as of right now. That's my 1-1. That was literally my thought. Good for Montgomery. He'll be in a backfield where he's still gonna, as of right now, split a little bit of time with Woody Marks. Woody Marks showed a little pop last year, but he'll be that physical bruiser guy. It's not gonna be. It'll be a little bit different than Detroit because you'll have a worse line and probably a little bit more more workload. But so solid for the Texans to get a running back in there who is competent, good, knows how to run between the tackles and can do a little bit. But my real thought was Jameer Gibbs 1-1 fantasy. That was it. That was like my main thought.
They're gonna treat Jameer Gibbs like a Heisman candidate this year.
They might listen. Every owner in the world of him and Bijan Robinson are like, can we just use him like the 49ers use McCaffrey? Like, can we just abuse this guy because he's so talented? Just give him the ball and move. But yeah, that was my thought.
I completely agree. That was the first thing I almost typed Jameer Gibbs is going to be running back 1. Like taking 1, finish 1. He's going to get all the touches.
Yep.
And then I brought it up in the group chat. I was like, what are the Texans doing here? They give up a lineman after already having a bad offensive line. Confusing to me. I just think for the Houston Texans, we get it just seems like 50% Detroit Lions production. Woody Marks is not Jameer Gibbs. He's probably 60%, maybe at a good week, 70% of Jameer Gibbs.
Yeah.
And David Montgomery at this point in his career is going to be 60% of what he was on Detroit in his prime. So putting those two together, you're just going to get 50% the production that they were 3 years ago. And the line gets worse in the process. So it just makes little sense to me. Yeah, you get your running back depth, but I just feel like you kind of tanked your team in the process. And then in the same process, you're going to let the league see what Jameer Gibbs on 300 plus touches a year looks like, which is going to be pretty scary. So good for the Lions. They get a lineman. They get pieces, a pick. I like it. Texans, you confuse the hell out of me.
Texans definitely, you said it. It's confusing. You can see a world where this move like is great, obviously, with Marks, with whatever the hell their offensive line is. That's the thing. We just don't know what their offensive line is. They extended Daniel Hunter, 1-year extension through next year. Cool. They have a Super Bowl defense. Crowd comes and goes depending on who's, in the receiving room. Tank Dell will be back this year for whatever that's worth. If they can add around the fringes at wide receiver, they got obviously Dalton Schultz at tight end. You got a good tight end there. If you can actually add to your offensive line, yeah, we probably will be talking about this team as far as a fringe contender, sleeper, something. You just never know. On top of that, what division do they play in? AFC South, which, much like the NFC South, roll the dice on it because you just never know. You just never know.
Last year was really good. If I told you the winning record would be 10, I mean, Timmy wouldn't believe it because he thinks the Jags are going to the Super Bowl winning it all. But outside of Timmy, you told me that it was 10-7, 9-8, 8-9, or 8-9 and 6-11, I'd be like, yeah, makes sense. Division has like under 35 wins combined, probably something like that. You're like, okay, that could work. But at the same time, you could see teams do very well again. We don't know. You're right. Let's roll the dice, figure it out.
Speaking of the Jags, Brandon Petty was supposed to be here today. He's not. Hopefully he's here for our next NFL pod. But like Titans, any of us actually investing in the Titans as of right now? Obviously, we got a lot of offseason left, but probably not, right? Titans don't give us any reason to inspire confidence.
Not this year.
Not this year. Daniel Jones is going to be coming off a torn Achilles. Jaguars, we should, like Tim's got them maybe as a Super Bowl threat. I think a lot of people will be thinking that way too, but that means we got to trust Trevor Lawrence for 2 years in a row. It looks like it's promising, but you just never know with them. So, I mean, your default number 2 right now is the Texans. So, and could be, like we said, they could work their way up to number 1. We'll see. But the offensive line has obviously been the issue year after year here throughout the Stroud era.
Well, yeah, no, like if I'm them in the draft, I'm probably taking 7 offensive linemen and we'll just try them. Like I'm not like I'm genuinely
We're drafting our second string too.
I'm not even kidding. Like, sign a receiver. They figure it out. Sign a receiver. They have Dalton Schultz. You get Tank Dell back. You have Nico Collins. Just go sign a number 3. Get Stephon Diggs back. He played well enough to be like, okay, depending on what his out off the field things are going on. But like on the field, like sign him back. He's gonna be a slot guy for you. Then seven offensive linemen. 3 of you might start. Whoever is best is gonna start and figure it out. Just what else do they need?
I mean, you know who runs the team over there, Keenan? Nick Caserio, who used to be big in our front office. What he should do, if he was smart, he would give all the money in the world to who's probably like maybe 90 years old now, but Dante Scarnecchia. Throw him the bag and just let him do his work, his magic that he did with the Pats all those years. He retired twice with the Pats, and he was old as hell then. He had been with the franchise for like 30 years then. So I'm gonna look up.
Well, yeah, every time the offensive line was like going downhill, it'd be like, Dante, yeah, I'll come back, guys. And then the offensive line, like literally like that in a snap. You'd have one off season, same personnel. Man, this offensive line's great. What happened? I don't know what Dante does, but he does something. Golly.
They should throw the bag at old Dante for sure.
They should, and draft 7 offensive linemen. I'm not even kidding. What do they need defensively?
And one receiver. And
sure, they can draft a receiver, whatever. But I would spend it all.
Or actually, don't draft a receiver. Go spend money on Alec Pierce. That's the next guy I want to talk about. Where would we like to see Alec Pierce go? Because he's intriguing to me. He's one of these guys we see in free agency often who he's not a number 1 guy. Wasn't the number 1 guy. He was, in fact, the number 3 or 4 guy, you could say, for the Colts. But you could very well see him as a number 2 guy somewhere. You could definitely see him as an impact guy somewhere. Where would you guys like to see Alec Pierce fall?
Timmy, I'll let you go first, and then I'll go.
The Texans is a good spot there. The Patriots are also a good spot. They love their white wide receivers, and this would kind of fit perfectly in. I also kind of think like the Chiefs have not really had that number 2 with Hollywood and Xavier Worthy. I think Pierce would be a better 2 there behind
Better
Rashi.
deep threat than both of them because
Exactly.
he's a legitimate deep threat.
He's one
And
of the
then
best
you
deep
could-
threats in the entire league.
Yeah,
honestly.
and you could convert Worthy to like solely a deep threat. Just let him run a go and let Pierce run like a mid deep route every other route. So like
He's only
I
got 2
kinda
routes
like
in his playbook. He's got the go route
Yeah.
and a deep post.
he goes
or some
straight
shit.
or he can kind of post it in a little bit, and that's it. Those are the only 2 they let him run. You got to guard it. You can't not. You got to put a guy
Mhm.
on that. So I wouldn't mind him there. I feel like he would work really well there. He's a really smart wide receiver, so I think it would work out. Really gritty guy, you know?
Mhm. So
Sneakily athletic. Sneaky athletic.
Sneakily athletic.
Key and Peele.
I was gonna
Russell
say-
Wilson. Hybrid.
You were saying how the Pats love their white receivers, which is damn true. I don't know if that was more Belichick or Brady. I really don't know.
Both. Oh wait, no. I mean, Brady did like Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. He said Antonio Brown. Come on, that's probably a
true.
Belichick thing. It's probably a Belichick. thing.
It could be. It could be. Though Belichick
No, they did have
bring
Scotty
it-
Miller though. He
him
did
up.
love to have his one. He did have his like Scotty. Come over here. We
need
need you in
someone-
that deep.
Need someone over the middle. Godwin's not gonna do it. Godwin's just not gonna do it. I was gonna say, I guess this is more of a Brady thing and really only an Edelman thing. I was gonna say maybe they like their wide receivers that are white that play black. Excuse me, but that was really only Edelman. Edelman's a dog.
You know. So New England, absolutely, I'd love that. We were talking, I believe, a little bit before the pod about AJ Brown compared to that. So that I would love. Outside of New England, a couple teams I thought of. Maybe Seattle if they don't end up signing back Rashid Shaheed. I thought that could be interesting because
Yeah, he's a free agent.
you still want that number 2 that's pretty consistent that can get down the field deep alongside of JSN. So you have that kind of JSN can obviously do everything, and then you have another guy who can kind of take the top off. So make it interesting. So I thought Seattle was kind of interesting, and then something that won't happen, but I think would be actually financially and GM smart. Cowboys trade George Pickens and then sign Alec Pierce. So
Would be smart.
I mean, because I
Be
just
a
don't
lot
think
of
you're
moving
gonna.
pieces.
It is moving. It's a lot of moving pieces. So, and I think it's difficult. And I know like it's not just that easy to be like, oh yeah, we're doing this and then doing that. But if you're not going to sign George Pickens long term, which is going to be difficult to do, to have 2 receivers on the books that are going to be that much, plus also how much. I mean, Dak restructured his deal. I want to say Tyler Smith restructured his deal, so they have more cap room for this season. So I would personally trade Pickens while his value is probably as high as it will be ever. I know he had that little stint during the back half of the season, but like he had a great season. Sign Alec Pierce. I think that would be the most financially smart move to do. Or if the Bengals, if they could get something for T. Higgins. I think Alec Pierce being like that second on a team that already has a legitimate number 1 would be perfect. Even Minnesota, where it's like teams like that already have that legitimate number 1, get him as a 2, and you're golden. But Minnesota has Addison, so they don't really need it. But yeah.
Real quick, Tim, what would you do with Pickens? And then I want to pivot to another player.
I'd probably keep Pickens. I think he is worth it. I don't know what they're going to come to on a long-term deal here. Is it viable for them to be paying 2 wide receivers close to $40 million a year? Probably not. But the offense could be crazy. It really could, with the 2 of them fully healthy, rolling all year long. It probably makes more sense for them to trade him, but I don't think that they will. I think the Cowboys are just too locked in. They've already tagged him, so they would have to be willing to get a good enough value to say like it was worth it to tag him and use our tag on him. So I don't know. It's really confusing. I would probably just keep him, at least for this year. Definitely keep him. Tag him, pay him the money. And then next year, if you can't figure it out, then you could. I mean, he'll be a free agent, I guess. So Yeah, it's really confusing, but I would keep him this year, 100%.
That, like, once you tag him, it's either like you can't just consistently tag him forever. So it's like
unless you're the Bengals with T.
Unless-
Higgins, then you can do it every year.
So then I personally would just like, hey, George, just go. Or if I don't know if they could, if they value George over CD, it's like, hey, CD, you could do that. Like, but I would trade one of them and sign a guy like an Alec Pierce who can do 85% of what they can do for much less.
How I would play the Pickens thing, obviously he's franchised. I kind of would play the year-to-year tag, or I'd do the Kirk Cousins game with him. I would never sign him to a long-term deal. He's too volatile. I mean, the chances of him being productive for like a 5-year stretch, yeah, it's possible, but like I definitely see him being closer to like the Brandon Ayuk, Antonio Brown route. And maybe that's not fair to put on him, like just crashing out towards like the end of his contract, but like, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen him just give up on routes in the middle of plays in key moments. We've seen him just fight guys in the middle of plays in Pittsburgh. So, I would year to year or just short term, like 2-year contract. That's like big money. You know what I mean? I think that provides incentive for him. That's what I would do.
I don't know if he signs that, to be honest. And then you let him walk. And I guess. And my question to you guys is: do you think George Pickens is better than AJ Brown?
Better? No, I wouldn't say so necessarily.
Same ballpark, roughly. I ask because
talent-wise, he's up there with a lot of your top receivers. But as far as just reliability, I'd probably have AJ Brown. I mean, all these receivers are divas, but George Pickens seems legit crazy. So I think he's a different animal than a lot of these guys.
Fair. No, I asked because obviously Patriots said 1st and 3rd for AJ. They want 1st and 2nd. Would you trade a 1st and a 3rd right now for Pickens? Would you trade just a 1st for Pickens? 2nd and 3rd?
Maybe. I would lean more in the 3rd market for him. He's just way too volatile.
I'd give a 2nd and a 3rd for Pickens. I think he's not as good as AJ Brown, I would say. The diva level, they're probably about the same. And Pickens is quite a bit younger, so he's got a couple more years that he can get you production. I think the thing with Pickens for me is it's really hard for me to see him as a wide receiver 1 on a team, but he could be the best wide receiver 2 in the league, and it could just not be close. He could go for 1,415 touchdowns, and no wide receiver 2 on really any other team is going to be in that ballpark. So when you trade a 1st and you get Pickens as your wide receiver 1 on the New England Patriots, don't love it. Hell, give the 1st and the 3rd, get AJ Brown, give a 2nd, get Pickens, run them both.
And so I asked because they traded, the Cowboys sent a 3rd and a 5th for Pickens and a 6th. And so if you can turn that in 1 year into either 1 first-round pick or a 2nd and a 3rd, after 1 year of use, that obviously was productive and helped your team. Obviously, you didn't get to the ultimate goal, whatnot, but it did help you build for the future. And then you're able to sign another guy that can supplement a lot of him, but obviously not all of it, but at least he's going to try on every play. He's got that deep threat still. Obviously, Pickens has more talent, and I'm not going to say that, but I just feel as if you could do that, that's the smartest financial decision. If they're the likelihood of them doing this is like not high. I'm just saying this, my GM brain, not that I'm a GM, but my GM brain would be like, hey, I'm looking for a 1st for Pickens. And then I'm looking for a 2nd and a 3rd. And maybe what if Carolina's like, sure, let's get Bryce, a 2nd and a 3rd. You've got Tet. You've got now George Pickens. You gave him whatever. Or I don't know, the 49ers are like, oh, Brandon Ayuk's not really working out here. We have Ricky Pearsall. Let's get George Pickens. We feel like we can work with that and then kind of go from there. Like, or whatever. I'm just naming random teams that I kind of first see. Miami, maybe Jalen Waddle, Pickens, and kind of do something there. Like, I'm just saying If I could get that, I would do it.
I don't think he's worthy at all. Again, the talent's there. I don't think he's worthy at all of any sort of draft capital. I just think he's got a higher chance of burning you in the end. We've just seen receivers like this. These type of receivers, you really don't want to give up top tier draft capital for as far as first or second round picks. Anything with a third and on, fine. Maybe even just a second round pick, but multiple picks, I'm not giving up high end draft capital for them.
And that's fair. And I don't
risk,
even
high
think
reward.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think you're wrong, because I wouldn't be happy if the Patriots gave a second and third for him, because I think the highs are highs, but the lows can be low. So I wouldn't be happy. But I feel like one of the 32 or 31 other teams would say, yeah, second and third.
I really
So
don't.
I feel
I don't think. He's one of the more intriguing.
Or at least second and fourth are like, I think that you could get a second and something for just George Pick. I really do. I think somebody would do it. And if that's the case and you could find somebody to do it, then you made an asset that you got very better while also using him and having a good season, and then you're able to still help your team. I don't know. Like, that's just my thought process, but we can move off for George Pickens.
And AJ, I'm only giving up capital if I'm like a true contender. If I'm like on the doorstep, then I'm giving up capital for AJ. Even though I think he's more reliable as far as health and I almost said maturity, but even as wild as even as ridiculous, I'll say this: he's more of a diva than Pickens is just wild. He's just Pickens is just on his own tier, honestly. I think he's closer to Ayuk than CD. Let's say that. AJ Brown, though, I'm like the Bills. Like if they would have went after him instead of DJ Moore, or if you're the Ravens, then like those teams, I see going after him. I don't even really see the Eagles giving him up, honestly. I think he stays with Philly. But one last player I want to bring up before we get to anything else. Kyler Murray. What do we think? I just want to say I was on shouts to Is the Hype Real podcast. Shouts to those guys. We brought him up the other night as far as being a free agent option. I named a few teams that I thought was intriguing. John did not seem to like him at all. He said, hey, maybe he just needs to go sit, be a backup somewhere, humble himself. And then Ray gave an even better answer, probably the best answer I've heard so far this year. He said go to baseball. He said just give up football and go to baseball. I was like, all right, I didn't even think of it like that, but that's true. The other side of that, he is athletic enough to be drafted in the first round of 2 different leagues. How do you guys view Kyler? Where do you think he could end up? Where would you like to see him end up?
I did see something of the Athletics coming out and saying that they're willing to take him back on because they have the right, since they did use a draft pick on him.
True story.
So they could get him back if he decides to go back. That
poor franchise, yeah, I'd take him too. Like, what? I'd figure.
Well,
they're not hurting anything. It's gonna sell tickets.
Here's the funny thing with his contract from Arizona. There's offsetting language in the contract to where if he signs a deal right now, any money that he's paid by that franchise, the Cardinals do not have to pay him that. It offsets his contract. So he's guaranteed like $40 million this year. He's going to sign a league minimum, and it's going to offset that by like $700,000, and then the Cardinals don't owe him that $700,000. If he goes to baseball, that is not applicable here because this is not the same sport. The Oakland Athletics could go sign him. Is it Oakland still, or they moved to Vegas? What do they do?
They're Vegas. I don't know if it's this year, but they're eventually going to be Vegas.
They're just the Athletics. They're just like right now. They're just.
If they pay him $15-20 million, he just gets $20 million, and the Cardinals can't do anything about that because they're not in the same league. So that would be the smart thing for him to do if he wanted his money, his cash grab. He could go do that. I got to be honest. The only situation I think that really makes sense is Minnesota. If it sounds like they're really willing to let JJ go and they want to find that replacement, Kyler can be that replacement. There's no other team that like really makes sense. Like the Jets would just be a dumpster fire. It would be so bad for that to go. So it just wouldn't work. And I can't really think of any other open spots that really need it. I mean,
the only other one.
Yeah, but I guess that would.
Atlanta's the only. Atlanta and Minnesota make the most sense because you have 2 rookie quarterbacks who you still have or second-year quarterbacks that you still have questions about. they have a bunch of offensive talent with good offensive-minded head coach, good to great offensive-minded head coaches. You throw that Kyler Murray in there, and you hope for a Sam Darnold. Crazy that the Vikings could have had someone like a Sam Darnold on their roster to just keep. Seems crazy. I don't know what they could have done there. Well, they had actual Sam Darnold, and when he was actually good, because he was 14. Like, did I think Sam Darnold was going to go win the Super Bowl this year? I didn't. Did I think he could at least be good on this Minnesota team because we saw him do it last year? That I did. There was no need, and we talked on this podcast multiple times. Hey,
this time last year,
just literally tag him. Just tag him. You don't know what JJ is going to be. Just tag him. And that's it. We would know by now, and then you'd be like, hey, Sam Darnold, here's a 4-year, $115 million contract, because obviously he wouldn't have the same value as he does now. Or maybe he does, because maybe they won the Super Bowl. Like, we don't know. They were 9-8 without him. Maybe they win the Super Bowl. We don't know. He brings the first to Minnesota, and Minnesota goes nuts. Like, maybe. But yeah, I'm in the Minnesota or Atlanta club, or sitting behind Matt Stafford for a year and saying, hey, I'll take this job when it's done. I'll get better.
That's actually what John had mentioned too, when I didn't even think about that. Obviously, there's a possibility they just bring Jimmy back. LA would be super interesting. I love the thought of Minnesota or Atlanta for one reason outside of the talent. Dome teams. I think Kyler in a dome could be electric. Unlike Darnold and some of these other guys like Geno, who we've seen like with resurgence, Kyler had real success. Kyler brought a team to the playoffs. Kyler has shown talented and exciting moments in Arizona. Like, yeah, he's not a playoff performer. Like, I wouldn't trust him to win a fucking Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong. But you get him with real offensive talent and a coaching staff and a dome, someone who relies on athleticism. Why not? That could be fireworks, truly. And if you're telling me like it's a normal thing, like Darnold, like Geno, like all these other guys, maybe Mac Jones, if you're telling me it's a regular thing, these guys are just going to go to another situation and actually become better, why not? Why not Kyler?
I'm not going to lie to you. It wouldn't be good past October, but Miami, let that offense be fast in September.
I said that as well. I said that as well. That's the team I brought up.
Listen, it won't be good past Halloween at all. Like they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything past Halloween, but man, would that offense be possibly electric before? You would hope Mike McDaniel would be there because he could cook up something nice. All I'm saying is that offense is a Madden's dream. You just have speed everywhere. You make everything work. It's a Madden dream offense.
Real quick, guys, Khalil Mack back to the Chargers on a 1-year deal.
Like it.
That's good. He was actually pretty good this year. He did get injured, but when he was playing, he was actually very, very good there.
Alec Pierce is another place the Chargers wouldn't be bad. Him, Ladd, Quentin Johnston. When you're up and down, I wouldn't mind it. Get a cheaper receiver that can add to Justin Herbert, kind of help him stretch the defense.
Fellas, any other impending free agents, or maybe even just a guy who's not on the trade market, but you guys would like to see get traded? Any other call outs here?
One.
Is there anybody
Timmy, I think you have one too, maybe?
Well, I have one question.
Yeah.
And it actually should be pretty quick. What the hell's going on? What do you guys think's going to happen to Aaron Rodgers? Do you think he resigns? Do you think he retires? I think if he doesn't resign, Pittsburgh is in like a really bad spot. New coach, potentially no quarterback going into this year's draft with like a late to mid first.
And like an old quarterback. That's the thing or not like an old coach. That's the thing that sucks about like if they had a young coach, you'd be like, hey, let's just throw Will Howard out there for a year and figure it out. But like I don't think Mike McCarthy's around for the 4-year rebuild. It's just not what you get him for. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, if he comes back, he's a Steeler, and him and McCarthy relive the glory days, and they win 9 games and do something.
That's the tricky thing. Actually, I've said this. I like Mike McCarthy as a coach. I even like Mike McCarthy with a young QB. I just thought this was a perfect opportunity for Pittsburgh to like, all right, Mike Tomlin's not here. okay, let's go get a brand new coach, because that's what they did essentially with Tomlin. Like, he wasn't even a prime candidate when they found him. So I thought they were going to go find a deep cut guy, someone who was young, who can kind of build this out. Okay, this is a bridge coach who they signed to a 4-year deal, who is a real coach, by the way. Like, not just a bridge coach, a winning coach.
Oh, 100%.
That's all fine. But okay, Aaron Rodgers. I actually kind of think low key, he doesn't really sound great in cold weather, but Kyler kind of makes sense for the Steelers too a little bit. I could see Kyler having success with DK if you got an offensive line there. I don't love him in a cold weather city like Pittsburgh, but he kind of makes sense there. Especially when you figure he does a lot of the same things Rodgers does as far as deep balls and, what do you call it, back shoulder throws. Rodgers, I mean, I've kind of called it out since last year. He's another one I love for the Vikings if they're really not in on JJ.
Oh, yeah.
I still think Rodgers has got it. He doesn't have the scrambling ability, but give him a real offensive line and real multiple weapons. I'm not going to say the word Super Bowl, but like deep playoff run, why not? On the right team, why not?
I also don't hate Atlanta. Another dome team. And just dome team, weaker division. If you do have I have more faith in Penix than I do McCarthy. Penix is coming off of an injury. Let him just.
And he's probably not going to be ready week 1 is the thing. Like, that's Atlanta and Minnesota. But I think
you can convince yourself. Yeah.
Real quick, just answer Tim's question.
Yeah, you're good.
I think Rodgers plays regardless. I just don't know if it'll be week 1, week 6, week 8, but I think he will be playing in 2026 regardless.
I think he actually is going to be a week 1 starter somewhere. And if I'm Minnesota or Atlanta, I'm just sick of sick of wasting years. Not that Minnesota's been doing it, but like more Atlanta. I'm just like not going to just waste years. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers is not a wasted year. If you have everything around him, I don't feel like it's a wasted year. I feel like if you went to the Steelers, it's a wasted year because I don't think that.
Agree with that. I think Atlanta's talent is on another level right now. They have it at every position.
100%. So I don't think if you have everything around him, I don't think it's a wasted year of Aaron Rodgers. If you're asking, like, I'm not sure Josh Allen would take this Pittsburgh team super, like he could because it's Josh Allen. Like it would take a Josh Allen to do such a thing. Like, I mean, depending on like the defense, if it's still like very good but like offensively, they're not phenomenal. But it'd take a Josh Allen, Mahomes, Lamar to make this team great. And Rodgers isn't that anymore. My last thing real quick is Trey Hendrickson. Where does he go?
He could do the funniest thing and just sign with Baltimore and then kill Joe Burrow, rip him in half.
Or Pittsburgh, or Cleveland.
He could do any of them. He could do the funniest thing and be like
killing Joe Burrow and ripping Joe Burrow. I like we just said it. Like it's not going to be a tough night for him against Baltimore. We jumped straight to ripping him in half.
I think the Patriots make a lot of sense. They've got money. They need a pass rusher.
I agree.
I think he's willing to sign. I don't know if they're going to want to sign like a super long-term deal, but he would sign a 3-year deal. I think he's probably looking to get a long-term deal so he gets paid. Gets like a 5-year, but Patriots make a lot of sense. They need their pieces. Why wouldn't you want to play for Mike Vrabel? Just coming off of a Super Bowl. I think it makes too much sense. Everything just seems like it would work.
Hendrickson would be amazing in New England. Like Tim just said, it makes a ton of sense. Why do I have these visions? And I don't even know if they have the ability to do this, but why do I like LA Rams? Just seems like he could be an LA Ram. It just seems like the type of move they would make right now. Same thing with, again, I don't know if this makes sense cap wise and blah, 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 but Atlanta. Those are the two teams that first jumped out to me when you asked. New England obviously makes a ton of sense. I love that for them. To have an impact pass rusher to go with the already talented defensive line on top of that. I love that for New England. But I have these visions of him just going to the Rams, and I have no idea why. Or even the Chargers, to be honest with you, for talking LA.
I obviously would love him in New England, taking my New England fandom out of it, because I think it does make sense too. two teams that I'm looking at and I'm like, I could see it. I could just feel week 7, Patriots on the road, 3rd and 8 against Buffalo. Trey Hendrickson's back, and I'm like, golly, you got to be kidding me. They let Joey Bosa go, and they're like, hey, Trey, here's a 2-year or 3-year just money deal. Go. Like, so
Von Miller was supposed to be?
Yeah, kind of do like the Von Miller thing. So that's the one team that I had that just like came straight to my mind. Then the other team, oddly enough, I was like, what if Chicago just says, hey, we feel like we're here and let's just go for it. Like, we've got Sweat, put him on the opposite side. We've got Grady Jarrett. And then it's like, oh my goodness, what are we so like, those are the two teams in my head that was like outside of New England. And I was like, oh my goodness, put them there. And that might be a little scary.
On that same note, Detroit.
Yeah, no, that like him and Aiden Hutchinson, yikes. Or him and Micah, yikes. Like, I don't.
Him and Hutchinson would be like, we haven't seen a white defensive line like that probably since the 80s, if that's the case. I'd have to do the math and the science on it, but 2 impact white defensive linemen like that, not as rare as a starting 5 white, in the NBA, but like 2 impact white pass rushers in the NFL, that's something. Speaking of NFC North too, I do like the Zaire Franklin addition for the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
I think that's a great move for them.
I agree. And I think there's noise around Rashawn Gary possibly getting cut, if I remember correctly. Austin was talking to me about that.
He had made a post, and it was like a goodbye Green Bay post. But then since then, he deleted the post, and they came out and said that it was like a hacked account type deal. So we honestly don't have enough info on the topic right now.
Yeah. So, because if you do get rid of Gary and then sign Hendrickson, especially with Micah coming off of the injury, you can kind of ease him back in a little bit more, and you still have a ferocious pass rush with a team that feels ready. So I think Hendrickson goes to a team that matters. That's my mind. Like, I think he will be on a team that matters, kind of in the Maxx Crosby, not exactly Max, but like he's playing meaningful football next year is what I'm going to say for Hendrickson. He's not just going to go hey, I'm going to go to Arizona, get 16 sacks on a 7-10 team. Even though Arizona could possibly turn it around, any team can do it. But yeah, that's all I have.
I'm going to break the fourth wall here. They were supposed to be NFL over-unders, and there was so much movement that we pivoted. And I'll tell you this, the next time you see the 3 of us together and possibly Brandon,
hopefully,
we'll be doing NFL over-unders. And I don't mean wins, losses. I mean how Keenan and I just did it with the NBA. How many Super Bowls? That's for sure going to be the genesis. Keenan might even have some wild cards in there. It could be, I don't know what Keenan's got cooked up. I know there will be Super Bowls in there.
I'm going to have more.
There we go. I like it.
I'm gonna have many more topics.
I love it.
Teasing one more will be championship games. How many championship game appearances we've got?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
More, though.
I cannot wait. So the next time you see the 3 of us, it'll be NFL. You might see the WBP come back before that. We'll see. Little tease for you there. Keenan, want to close this out?
Warner Brothers Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all at Warner Brothers Podcast. Appreciate everybody who's been watching, subscribing, talking, fun. The Q&As Kyle have been doing, it's been fun. Hearing all the response from that. I've gotten mentioned from people at work about roller skating, Keenan, and so I was like, yeah, that's that is a hobby. Timmy sent to the group chat, Scotty Barnes roller skating out, so I was like, it's gonna be Keenan in a couple weeks, but it's been fun. Love doing those Q&As. Kyle's talking, and I have talked about it, the whole mailbag thing, something that could be in the future. But Warner Brothers Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We'll be seeing you guys again very soon.